Hi class, today we're going to talk about multi-layer design. We talk about distributed architectures. Most of us are familiar with them when your software application and the responsibilities are distributed across different components on the network. And there are servers, there are clients, multi-layer architectures. There are a number of them, and one example is a 3-layer architecture. Look at this example. We have data layer, takes care of the data, the access to the data. We have domain layer, keeps our business logic, and then we have view layer, is the point of contact with users or other software applications. Keep in mind that your business logic is the one that changes less often. Your view layer, it evolves very rapidly. So look at us today. We need mobile applications for almost all of our web-based applications. So that is the area that changes a lot. And you would say data layer is somewhere in between. It changes, but not as often as your view layer. So it makes sense to keep them separate, because then this is going to stay constant and you would be able to change those other layers and their design and still have them work with what you had before in terms of business logic. This is another way of showing things, how a request is initiated and it goes through layers to come back to the user with a response. When it comes to your sequence diagrams, and this is going to be something you put in your assignment too, we want to ask you to have example of view layer objects, data layer objects, and this is an example of a view layer object, which is a form. It could be a window, it could be a page. What's important here is that you have your user and there is something in between your user and the rest of your sequence diagram, and those are your view layer objects or user interface objects. What we have here, and you've seen that before, is a controller. This is an additional concept here. So we had 3-layer architecture, so that's going to be your view, this is your logic, and we're going to talk about data very soon. This one, a controller, sits between your view and logic. It sits there to make sure your view layer objects are decoupled from your business logic, so they don't talk to your logic directly. They go through a controller. This is going to help you with security. This is going to help you with protection from variation. Again, this one changes a lot. The interface doesn't have to change with the logic because it goes through a controller. This area could change. Now, a controller has a purpose to serve, and this is a design principle that you could or could not follow. It's not a set in stone rule, but we want you to follow that. We want you to give us examples of view layer objects, and we want you to have a controller. Now, how do we do controller? Some designers, they do one controller per group of users. So if I have colonists and I have engineers, I will have a controller for colonists, and every form that is available for my colonists to work with, it will work with the colonist controller. Some people do that based on use cases. So a group of related use cases, they go through the same controller, like purchase controller that will take care of all requests related to filling a shopping cart, redeeming gift cards, changing addresses, selecting gift options, and all those are related to placing an order or purchasing an item, and they all go through that single controller. So how do we do controllers? You have a choice there, but we want you to have a controller, and we want you to get used to that idea that puts something between your view layer objects and business logic objects. This is going to help you. The view layer will not know a lot about your business logic, and that's a good thing. That helps you with protecting your logic and with security. The bad thing is that the controller then, depending on your design, may know a lot about your business logic objects, and that's something you have to be careful about, making sure that your controllers, they don't get too big. So this is the example of creating customer accounts. You see that there is a window, and there are other windows to receive information about address or addresses and information about the accounts. There is also a controller that sits in between, receives the information from those three view layer objects and sends them to their related business logic objects. There is a definition for model view controller pattern that I just talked about, and there is another slide that's currently hidden, so you didn't see it in my talk, but you can see it on my PowerPoint slide. So the idea is to decouple view layer objects from business logic objects. It is helpful. What is decoupling? It's the idea of interaction, direct interaction, and we don't want that to be at a high level. I will talk more about coupling later, but just keep in mind there is a very popular pattern called model view controller, and this is the idea. Controller helps model and view interact with each other.